live fulfilled, you've got to determine what that looks like. Where are you going to live? What do you want to drive? Is that important to you? How do you plan to spend your time? One thing that has proven true, both in my life as well as many millionaires, is during the broke stage of our life. Now, most of the millionaires that I know did not grow up with a ton of money. And I think that was really one of my interests, is the fact that most of us started out broke and then we became wealthy. It wasn't like we inherited money or married into money. But what was interesting is that what we envisioned our life to look like when we were broke is very different than how we envision and live it now that we have money. Hi, my name is Annette Bau, your host of the Wealth Inside and Out podcast. I'm a certified financial planner and founder of the Millionaire Insider. For over 30 years, I have been advising and researching the top 1% of millionaires, and I am passionately obsessed with money, mindset, and the intersection of self-worth and net worth, and how the two connect and allow us to live fulfilled and wealthy lives on our terms. I'm a Midwestern girl who had a dream, began investing $25 a month 35 years ago, and today have a multi-million-dollar net worth. I teach the tried and true that only someone with over 3 decades of experience advising millionaires would know. This podcast is different, about much more than money. We talk about mindset, success, money blocks, worth barometer, and all aspects of money and topics from practical manifestation, along with real-world how-to and everything in between, with the goal of making your journey easier and more fun. Think of this as coffee, actually matcha tea, learning real-world common sense money and life advice from a BFF that you can start applying today. If you want to create a financially free life you love, you are in the right place, my friend. This is the Wealth Inside and Out podcast. Most people would love to know how millionaires think. And while it really surprised me that while I was conducting my research for this podcast, one of the most common questions was how I became a millionaire. And I was thinking, like, why does someone care? But in episode 5, I share all that insight. You can go to themillionaireinsider.com/5. But then I started thinking, and I thought, we all kind of have a fascination about other people's lives, right? Especially people who have money. For some reason, we're like, oh, how is their life? And the interesting thing is that people who truly have money, not people who are spending their time looking like they have money, meaning more rich as compared to wealthy people, really have a pretty ordinary life. So it's not as interesting as some of you may think. That said, I think one of the biggest takeaways when it comes to how millionaires and wealthy people think is that they do make decisions differently and they do think differently. And I can remember when I was growing up, I truly thought there was something wrong with me because the way that I thought and how I saw the world. I was really big picture, and I always looked at what was possible. And a lot of people thought that, I had these crazy goals that were not attainable, meaning when everyone shared what they were going to do in 10 years upon graduating, most people were like, oh, I'm going to be married and have, 2 or 3 or 5 kids. And I'm like, I'm going to be a millionaire. And I remember my teacher looking at me and laughing, like, what are you talking about? There's like no way. I was always looking at the bigger picture. And I always saw challenges and problems as opportunities, especially as I got more experience working with millionaires. And once I started advising successful people and really immersed myself in their lives, I realized that we do think differently, and that's why we achieve such extraordinary success. So the best news of all is, regardless of your goal, you can learn valuable insight that's going to help you achieve your goal in the areas of money, business, and your life. So let's dive in. Before we dive in, I want to give you a couple thoughts. I know a lot of people say, well, I don't want to be a millionaire, but I want you to think about these 2 insights. The first thing that I have seen in my 35 years of advising wealthy people, and some that aren't so wealthy, as well as my 40 years of researching it, is that I personally think that it is more work and requires more energy to be poor, and it never gets easier. And later on in life, it's pure misery because you need money. And oftentimes you need healthcare you can't afford. You need food you can't afford. It is not a fun picture. Now, the other issue that I have found is that to achieve financial solvency, meaning to be okay financially, you really need to do the same things as if you want to become a millionaire. You got to determine what are going to be your income streams. How are you going to manage your spending plan or budget? How are you going to grow your assets so you don't have to work? And regardless of your goal, you're going to need those things. Now, my passion has been really in discovering what millionaires with a fulfilled life do differently. So as we go through this today, just know that that's what we're focusing in on. I mean, there's two camps of millionaires, ones that have fulfilled amazing lives and ones that have unfulfilled, miserable lives. And we're focusing in on those who really have amazing lives. Today, we're diving into the Millionaire Mindset Part 1, how fulfilled and wealthy people think differently. The reason I decided to divide this into two parts is because I just don't want it to be overwhelming. And I didn't want you to get into all the lessons to where you didn't start applying some of them. So we're going to dive into 6 today, and then we'll dive into 6 next week. You're going to see how millionaires think, live, and see the world, as well as how they make choices. I encourage you to listen to the 6 today and choose 1 or 2 that you really resonate with and start working there. It's going to help you get to where you want to go much more quickly than if you try to tackle all 6 of them. If you want one of the most valuable, insightful resources available on millionaires, how they think, what they do, you can access this free guide where I share 20 of the best millionaire insider secrets I've learned over the last 35 years advising and researching wealthy clients at themillionaireinsider.com/20MIS. The insight you're going to learn in this resource is priceless, and it's unavailable because very few people have spent 35 years entrenched in the lives of millionaires. Again, you can access it for free at themillionaireinsider.com/2020MIS. You're going to love this resource. For today's show notes and resources, go to themillionaireinsider.com/16. For all show notes, go to themillionaireinsider.com/podcast. All materials and intellectual property are copywritten by themillionaireseries.com. The information we provide is not intended to replace any advisor or specialist or to provide you any investment, tax, financial, retirement, or any planning or healthcare advice. All participants agree to hold millionaireseries.com and its affiliates harmless for results achieved or not achieved. So let's dive into the millionaire mindset. Now, there is so much information available on millionaires and mindset. And one of the comments I want to make is I love the fact that there's so much interest in this topic and that there's a lot of people really doing their part to help others. I also find that a lot of the insight is from interviews. And while some of the work is really helpful, the one thing that I see is that when someone is being interviewed for an hour, they don't typically give you all of the details. Like, you leave thinking like everything's just rosy and everything's wonderful, right? So the difference in what I'm sharing versus a lot of the material out there is I have been in the trenches for 35 years advising millionaires. And so I see what really goes on. And I've spent 40 years researching them because I've just been so fascinated with it. Why do some have great lives and others don't? And while I'll never share confidential information without the approval of my clients, what I can do is confirm that the research is accurate, meaning somebody shares something with me. If I've never experienced it, I don't share it because I'm like, that's interesting. I've just never, ever seen that to be true in my 35 years, so I'm not going to share it with you. So if I'm sharing something with you, not only have I discovered it in my research, but I've been able to confirm that it's true in reality. So I hope that helps you. But the first thing I want you to get is to understand what it means to think and act like a millionaire. So you've got to do that if you want to create a millionaire mindset, right? The basic level that you got to understand is the reason people are financially successful is that they accumulate more money than they spend. And today we're diving into 6 insights that are going to help you on your journey to living fulfilled and wealthy. So I think the most important and critical one is that you got to determine what your fulfilled life looks like. Now, everyone is out there telling you what you need to do and how you need to live. But the reality of it is that you've got to choose. And for some people, they don't have a desire to have a real extravagant lifestyle. Like I really don't. Now, when I didn't have money, I did. But now that I have money, I find that I enjoy the simple things, reading a favorite book, going on a hike. Now, I'm down in Phoenix right now, which is where our primary residence is. But in the summers, we live up in the mountains. And every morning, like almost every single morning, we get up and go for a 3-mile hike. That's how we start our day. And it's just casual. I mean, it's just so fun. And it's just so nice to just get out in nature. It doesn't cost any money. And it's just awesome. And I feel so good. So again, this isn't for me to choose or your family or your partner or anyone else. It's for you to choose. Now, granted, if you do have a partner, it's ideal to discuss this with them. But the goal is to live fulfilled. You've got to determine what that looks like. Where are you going to live? What do you want to drive? Is that important to you? How do you plan to spend your time? One thing that has proven true, both in my life as well as many millionaires, is during the broke stage of our life. Now, most of the millionaires that I know did not grow up with a ton of money. And I think that was really one of my interests, is the fact that most of us started out broke and then we became wealthy. It wasn't like we inherited money or married into money. But what was interesting is that what we envisioned our life to look like when we were broke is very different than how we envision and live it now that we have money. So I'll just use myself as an example. I just wanted to travel. I didn't fly in my first airplane until I was 18 years old. And the reason I wanted to be a stewardess and travel is because I didn't have money and I never thought I'd be able to. And the funny thing is that now that I could afford to pretty much travel wherever I want, I have no desire to. We do live between 3 homes, mainly our desert home and our mountain home, even though we have a beach condo, which I love. I love to just go down there and sit and look at the ocean. What's great for us is we can get in our car, drive a couple hours north and be in the mountains, or we can drive a few hours south and be at the beach. We can go when we want to go and we can take our animals. It's just more relaxed for me. I like sleeping in my own bed and my own pillow. And as you know, I eat a really clean diet. Very low carbs and very low sugar because I'm allergic to sugar, as most people are, but most people don't even know it. I just know it because I had a health issue, and after looking at everything, I realized my issue is sugar. And since I have eliminated most sugar, almost all sugar, but most carbs, very low carb diet, I am doing better than I've done ever. I weigh my ideal weight and I feel great. And so it's a lot easier for me to be at one of my homes than it is to be in an Airbnb or in a hotel room. And I just personally don't like flying. I'm not sure why I decided. I thought I was going to be a stewardess. I realized I didn't like flying. And then I thought I'd be a nurse, and they drew blood and I almost passed out. So fortunately, I realized money's my thing and it has served me well. But the only thing that could really change my plan as far as being fulfilled is where my kids end up. So my older son is focusing in on business and marketing and finance, and he's probably going to be in some major financial hub. And my younger son is going to be in chemical engineering. So both of them could end up who knows where. And if that were the case, then we will probably make an adjustment. But as it is right now, I really can't think of anything I would do differently to live more fulfilled. That said, one thing I will just comment on as far as having multiple homes. So our main home and then our home in the mountains is just our home. And we treat both of them like they're our home. The one on the beach, we only go down there 2 to 3 times a year. So that one we lease out. And that one almost feels more like we're staying at an Airbnb. It doesn't really feel like it's really our home, even though it is. And if we ever got to the point where we're using it more, then I would not be having it on Airbnb. It just seems ridiculous because we're just rarely down there. All that said, I do think the one thing that maybe I'll do a future topic on this, but owning 2 homes does complicate your life, and 3 does too. I think that one of the things you just have to think about is that what you want. Now, that said, I think one of the biggest issues as far as having a second home for me is that it's easier for me to work down in Phoenix, where I also have an office. And even though I have a room in my home up where my second home is, it's just not as conducive to being down here. Now, I am going to, we are fortunate because we have a steam sauna, eucalyptus steam sauna, and then an infrared dry sauna. And I've decided I'm going to do a test recording of my podcast up there in the dry sauna without it on. Don't worry, I'm not going to get really hot and sweaty. Down here, I have my own little recording studio. So, you just got to think those things through. We've had our second home for 25 years. We've had our third home for about 5 years. And I think it just can complicate your life a little bit more. I think at some point, that may not be what I will want. And that's just important to know that you can change that. Like, this isn't going to be what it's going to be like forever. So just be aware of that. Some other things that are really key to me as far as living a fulfilled life is that I get to wake up without an alarm clock. In fact, I had to be on a couple of calls within the last month, major calls with one was one of my clients is selling a farm in the Midwest. Another one of my clients is back east, and we had to meet with an attorney. And I had to literally be on a call at 7:30 in the morning. There were 3 different days. And I was like, oh my gosh. Now I normally get up around anywhere between 7 and 8 in the morning, occasionally a little bit earlier, but I want to wake up when my body's ready to wake up. And one of the things that I always share is that for me, living fulfilled means living healthy. And the one thing we know from massive amounts of research is that getting adequate sleep is critical, getting to bed early and really getting good quality sleep. And so I want my health to be there. Getting sleep is part of that. So again, you got to look at what you want, but just being able to wake up when I wake up is so nice. Affording the health food that I like to eat, that I need to eat, and that I want to eat, and being able to afford it is also critical to me. Now, our food bill is astronomical. I mean, not only do I have one child who is a volleyball player and is over 6'5" and eats oh my God, if I ate like him, I'd be 500 pounds. I mean, he eats so much. And my other son eats a lot too. And their food bill alone is, thousands of dollars a month. And then my husband and mine is also a lot because we eat really healthy. So I like that. I am so glad that we're able to do that. It's absolutely, to me, such a key to a fulfilled life. Again, that's for you to decide. I also like that I can complete my personal power hours each morning, and I do about 2 to 3. Then I do about 1 to 3 in the evening. So, I'm doing a lot of personal power hours. I recommend you start with 1. I don't want you to get to, 5 or 6 until you've got, more money than you could spend or enough money that you're not worried about it. But if you want to learn more about power hours, you can go to themillionaireinsider.com/15. And that shares everything about power hours. All right. The next thing I really like is having space with my time and my thoughts. Space not to even think. So sometimes you want to think and sometimes you don't. But I love being able to just have enough time to where I can give some thought to what I want to do. One example just today because on Wednesdays, I work on my podcast. One of the things that I realized that I want to continue doing is I do work with a few select clients, not a lot, but a few. And one of the things I really do find fulfilling is working with people in situations that really challenge me and that I really feel I'm making an impact on. And one of the recent ones, which was a sale of a farm, as I mentioned, I mean, my client had an offer to sell the farm for a few $1,000s an acre. And I said, I just need to do a little research. We then found another buyer that was going to offer them literally like $5,000 more per acre. And we ended up then getting $7,000 more an acre just by the insight I provided and, my knowledge. And it was like, I didn't even have all the knowledge. I just have been through enough real estate transactions, both personally as well as with other clients, that I was able to, I knew what to do and how to do it. And those are the kind of things where I think, gosh, I mean, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars more money. I've had a couple situations recently where literally I found money for clients. One of my clients I found literally over, probably it's going to be like $600 or $700 a month she's going to get for the rest of her life. And another one, I discovered like over $1 million of stock that they were not even aware that they had not accounted for. And I've found a couple of times in the past, like in 3 or 4 different situations where people literally were going to lose a home because they weren't paying the taxes. It was a home in a different state and they hadn't updated their address. And because we do balance sheets, they were able to. Those things to me are really fulfilling. So again, it's not about what's fulfilling to me, it's about what's fulfilling to you. And so getting back to that thought is that by having space for my time and thoughts, I can think of things and see situations and see the end result. And my God-given talent is sometimes I have to sleep on it, but it's like, sometimes it bothers me because like I'll be around someone and I'm like, I can just see like, they're here and they want to get there and I can just see exactly how to do that. And sometimes it concerns me because I meet people and I talk to them and I listen to them and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I mean, it just really worries me because I see where they're at, where they want to go, and I see what they're doing. And I'm like, oh my God, that just sounds and looks like a train wreck. And I think part of it is just because I've done this for so long. I like being able to have that space to do that. I also like being able to hang with family and friends when I want to. We just got back, as I mentioned, it was the 4th, and we were with a lot of friends over the 4th. One of our neighbors, who's been a friend of mine for like literally years since I was in college, he built a cabin so there's our cabin, there was the rental cabin of ours that we sold, and then his cabin. And he's got like a 6-car garage. He's got a ton of cars. And on the 4th of July, we had this parade, and he's always got all his cars in it. We were in a 57 Chevy. And it's so funny how many people are so into cars and they're like, that's a 57 Chevy. The point being is that just hanging out every year, we have this whole get together, and then we have a picnic down at the country club, and we've done it for years and it's so fun. And then after that, we went to another party with one of my clients. That was great. And then we had friends come up and we had some family come up. So it was just like nonstop fun. And then one of our friends had a birthday, so we celebrated that. And so it was just so much fun just doing what we felt like doing and hanging out. I was able to read some books I wanted to read and just have no agenda time. Now, to me, that's critical. Again, you've got to figure that out. But just take a minute and identify some of the things that you want to incorporate in your life to live fulfilled. You and I are different. And the only wrong answer in this first step is choosing someone else's picture of a fulfilled life. And this is about your life, and I want you to choose it. Even if you have a partner that might not be on board, I want you to just get clear on some things that are important to you. And then as you go through your life and you start planning it, just start incorporating some of those things into your life. That is the key. The second one is you got to believe in yourself. The one thing I'll say about the millionaire mindset is, first, they know what their ideal life looks like and what it means to live fulfilled. Now, that said, we're talking about millionaires with amazing lives as compared to ones with miserable lives. So just be clear on that. But the next thing is they believe in themselves and they believe in their ability to achieve their goal. Now, this is so important. What I want you to get is it's not that we're necessarily more capable. It's just that we believe we can do it. and we will do it, and we'll do what it takes to achieve our goal. Obviously, it goes without saying that we're going to stay true to our morals and values. But the one thing I see so differently from millionaires and people who are struggling or people who don't have the same momentum is just simply the belief that they're going to achieve what they want to. Long before anyone else believes in you, we've got to believe in ourselves. Ideally, if we have a partner that believes in us, that's great, but you've got to believe in yourself. And you really got to work on loving yourself, because I think one of the biggest issues that a lot of us have or have had is the fact that we don't love ourselves. I spent a long time not liking myself, and I was so many ways such a perfectionist. And then, of course, I choose a career that requires complete perfection when you're dealing with people's money. What I've learned along the way is that the only way someone else is going to love you, whether it's a partner, whether it is a friend, a child, anyone, is you've got to, first of all, love yourself. And you got to realize that we're here to be the best we can be and to live our life on our terms and to be fulfilled. And I'm not saying we don't have regard for other people, but we got to, first of all, get clear on that to be able to achieve anything. And I think so many people go through life without loving themselves, and that's the biggest tragedy of all. All right, the third thing is we got to start with the end in mind. For as long as I can remember, I was focused with the end in mind. Now, it became popular with Stephen Covey, and I sort of laughed because he and I actually were on the same stage, and I was laughing, saying, I should be getting credit for that. But in his book, The 7 Principles of Highly Effective People, he brought it to light. But the one thing I will say about millionaires is that we know where we're going and we stay focused on it. And we're so clear on what that is. And if you can do one thing, is you got to get clear on what it is, what you want to achieve, and then you just got to stay true to it, regardless of how you feel. Because see, what happens is the reason we want to achieve a goal, whether it's to be financially free or whether it's to be a doctor, or whether it's to be a financial planner or whatever it is because how we think we'll feel once we achieve it. Ideally, what I want you to start thinking about is I want you to start experiencing that feeling now before you achieve it, because then it's so much easier when you get there to actually enjoy it. And that was something I wish I would have known a long time ago. But when we're clear on what it is we want to achieve and we stay true to it and we do our best every day to achieve it, that's really the only difference between how millionaires think and what they do and the choices they make as compared to somebody who's struggling. The fourth one, which is huge, is personal ownership and responsibility. So one of the things I will say about people who live fulfilled lives is that we take ownership and responsibility for what's happening in our lives, even when there are things that we don't want to happen. Now, it doesn't mean we have to blame ourselves. We got to get clear on that. But when things that happen that are out of our control, for example, we become ill or our house is robbed, we've just got to learn from the situation and focus on the solution. So this is one thing that I saw so much and I still see is that there are some people who are so focused on the problem and it's like they can't get off of ground one or out of the step one to focus in on the solution to the problem. And so you'll see millionaires that have problems and you see broke people that have problems. The difference between fulfilled millionaires and miserable millionaires is that both of them will have a problem. It could be that they get ill, right? But the fulfilled millionaires are focused on the solution to the problem, whereas miserable millionaires are focused on the problem. It's fascinating. And the same thing goes from broke people, is that where is your focus? Is it on the solution to your problem or is it on the problem? And the difference is people who create fulfilled and wealthy lives focus on the solution to whatever challenge is in their life. So let me just give you an example of a fulfilled and wealthy person. So they have an issue. Let's say they realize they're not saving enough money or they're spending too much. They will meet an expert who they'll get help from, and they'll focus on solutions. And what they do is they will say yes, hear them, and start implementing them. As compared to people who struggle, they're going to start explaining or rationalizing or justifying why they're not saving enough, and they'll oftentimes blame others. And they get so caught up on their reasoning and why they can't get ahead and how it's hard. It's fascinating. Now, if you're a financial advisor or a money coach, you always want to ask the person if they want input before you ever give a recommendation. And what I do is if somebody complains to me and I say, would you like some insight? And they say, yes. I always say, are you sure you want insight? And 9 times out of 10, they'll say yes. And I really encourage you to get them to agree, not just once, but twice. I always do that before I give any type of coaching. And obviously, if you're an advisor, you really need to be careful before you start actually giving advice to make sure you've got you've got that relationship established. But what I find is a lot of times people will start bringing up excuses or blaming others. And I just really kindly say, if something changes and you want support, let me know. But I can't help you if you're going to focus on blaming your partner that you divorced 10 years ago. I mean, it's just mind-boggling to me that they're still using that excuse. So the reality of it is that person is going to be in that situation likely until they're willing to change. And while this can be hard for those of us who want to help out, we've got to realize that person has to want to change. And that requires that they establish new beliefs, new neural pathways, new habits, and behaviors. And it also includes that they take ownership and responsibility for all of the choices and the results that are happening. And it doesn't mean they blame themselves, but it means they take ownership and that they're willing to do the work to get different results. So critical. All right, number 5, they learn from their mistakes. So start by noticing how people who are struggling show up. And you're going to notice that they fail to learn from their mistakes and instead they continue to repeat them. Many millionaires have had financial disastrous situations occur. Those who go on to live a fulfilled and wealthy life learn. They don't continue to repeat it. Other ones will share how they were a millionaire, then they went broke, and then they were a millionaire, and then they went broke, as if it's like a bragging game. I don't want to become a multimillionaire and then go broke, and then become a multimillionaire and then go broke. It's just fascinating. But the reality of it is that people who live fulfilled lives, they think differently and they learn from their mistakes. They don't keep repeating them. And then number 6 is they have space between their thoughts. Too many people spend too much time thinking and not enough time just being. To master manifestation, and I love practical manifestation, we've got to quiet down our primal brain, which is also known as our toddler or child brain. And that requires that we're able to have space between our thoughts where we're not thinking. That's why focused breathing, yoga, meditation are such great strategies because they help us to improve the space between our thoughts where we are not thinking. Too many people are so caught up in overthinking that they don't have any space to actually just be. And that is not ideal. And that's one thing that fulfilled millionaires do a really good job of. So there you have it. I want to recap on the 6 insights. As I review them, I want you to identify 1 to 3 that you're going to start taking action on immediately. To create a fulfilled and wealthy life, you got to start with one step in the right direction, not 10, not 100, just 1. And then you can start with the next one and so on. That, my friends, is how you do it. So let's recap. Number 1, you got to determine what your fulfilled life looks like. 2, you got to believe in yourself long before others do. It's important that you start with the end in mind. That's what millionaires do, is they see the end goal and they stay on track to achieving it. We've got to take personal ownership and responsibility. We've got to learn from our mistakes and not continue to repeat them. And we've got to have space between our thoughts. Ooh, so good. If you love the content, please share it with a friend and subscribe or follow so you get notified of future episodes. And also, please give us a 5-star review. We really appreciate it. Congratulations on taking another step to create a financially free life you love. If you're not sure about your financial future or that it's in order, or you are ready to stop worrying about money or possibly the fear of becoming a bag lady, ending up broke in retirement,
or you simply are ready to know your financial house is in order so that you can have a bright financial future, please go to themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. And that doesn't stand for non-sufficient funds. It stands for next step finance. It's the next best step of what you need to do so you can avoid an NSF notice in your future. Again, themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. The number of women who were not broke or poor while working or married is staggering. The entire mission of the Wealth Inside and Out podcast is to ensure you have the information for you, your family, your friends, anyone who's willing to listen to it and apply it so that you can create a financially free life you love. Again, themillionaireinsider.com/NSF. Until our next episode, take one action that will help you create a financially free life you love. I'm Annette Bau, your host. All international copyrights are reserved. Bye for now.